Arguably, the most recognizable symbol of Heracles is the lion skin he wears as cloak and helmet. And while not an icon of equal legendary status, we can still equate the goat skin that Jacob covers his body with in order to trick his blind and dying father to the lion pelt of the Greek demigod. If you're unfamiliar with the background, Jacob wears the animal skin in order to fool his father and take his older brother's blessing, and this comes in addition to Jacob stealing the birthright of Esau already, earlier in their lives. Furthermore, Jacob and Esau are described as opposites in Genesis 25, with Esau an acclaimed hunter and Jacob as a homebody who likes to spend his time in the tents. One day, Esau is away at the hunt, and he comes back famished, nearly to the point of starvation, begging his little brother for his food to satisfy his hunger. But Jacob wagers in exchange for his stew that Esau should give him his birthright, which he does because of his hunger. How embarrassing for Esau, the supposed great man of the hunt, not be able to feed himself and have to beg his nerdy little brother Jacob for sustenance. And Jacob we can understand as a technocrat, along with Heracles, where they outmatch the more physically capable beasts through cunning and persistence, and it's not just brute force and violence. Like, for instance, Jacob conniving to get his brother's birthright. We can think of this much the same like tech giants, where through wits and a little bit of shadiness, they have acquired a monopoly of technologies or industries to exert control over society. So imagine Jacob is like this Bronze Age tech CEO, where Esau's birthright as an outdoorsman and hunter is like a new market you'd like to enter through an acquisition. And Jacob achieves this through quick thinking, but also deception and humiliation of that Esau's way of living and hunting is made a mockery of, and it's basically obsolete, where Jacob has proved his strategy to stay at home more valuable, and ultimately that's what it's about in the Bronze Age, is to survive. Fast forward some time to Genesis 27, where Isaac, the father of Esau, is old, blind, and dying. So he asks for his son to go out and hunt some game and prepare a meal with it, and afterwards he will give Esau his blessing, his right as the eldest male child. So here, let's read from Genesis. Isaac said, I am now an old man and don't know the day of my death. Now then, get your equipment, your quiver and bow, and go out to the open country to hunt some wild game for me. Prepare me the kind of tasty food I like and bring it to me to eat, so that I may give you my blessing before I die. Two important takeaways from this passage are, one, the association with Esau and the hunt, as well as the mention of Esau grabbing his hunting equipment along with his bow and arrows, which their significance will become more apparent when I compare this to the legend of Heracles later in this video. But moving on in Genesis, Rebekah, the wife of Isaac, overhears this talk and goes to Jacob, and she repeats what she hears and devises a scheme for Jacob to impersonate Esau and thus be the son who receives the blessing from Isaac. And I'll read again from Genesis, where Rebekah reveals her plan to trick Isaac into giving Jacob Esau's blessing. Go out to the flock and bring me 2 choice young goats, so I can prepare some tasty food for your father, just the way he likes it. Then take it to your father to eat, so that he may give you his blessing before he dies. Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, But my brother Esau is a hairy man, while I have smooth skin. What if my father touches me? I would appear to be tricking him and would bring down a curse on myself rather than a blessing. His mother said to him, My son, let the curse fall on me. Just do what I say. Go out and get them for me. So he went and got them and brought them to his mother, and she prepared some tasty food, just the way his father liked it. Then Rebekah took the best clothes of Esau, her older son, which she had in the house, and put them on her younger son, Jacob. She also covered his hands and the smooth part of his neck with the goat skins. Then she handed to her son Jacob the tasty food and the bread she had made. And there's 2 more interesting details in these verses I just read, with the first being the mention of the 2 goats that were killed for the father Isaac to eat, and the second being the robe and goat skins that Rebekah supplies Jacob with to better impersonate his brother. So eventually Esau comes back from hunting and he makes the food for Isaac, but he discovers that his blessing has already been received by Jacob and there's no do-overs. So he's furious with these turn of events, and he exclaims he's going to kill Jacob once Isaac dies. And overhearing this is Rebecca again, right? She's everywhere. So worried for Jacob's safety, Rebecca sends him to live with her brother Laban. And this is where we can make the clearest link between these seemingly opposite characters in the Greek and Hebrew myths. But Jacob and Heracles, right, they both have to serve this older relative for a number of years. And these both begin with their exile. Where in Genesis, we know this older relative as Laban, and in Greek mythology, we know him as Eurystheus. But before Heracles is exiled and, on the way to do this forced labor for his older relative, let's rewind some to bring this full circle with the story of Jacob. So Heracles, when he was a child, he had a musical tutor who he ended up killing, and as a punishment, he was sent away to become a cattle herder. And when he was 18, the king of Thespius asked him to kill the Thespian lion because it was devastating the herds of King Thespius as well as his stepfather Amphitryon. So Heracles went to the city of Thespius. After the 50 days, Heracles slays the lion, and henceforth he would wear the skin as a helmet and cloak, like how Jacob disguises himself in the goat skin to trick Isaac. We can equate the legendary lion skin of Heracles to the wool goat skin that Jacob wears in Genesis 27. After slaying the Thespian lion, Heracles received a sword from Hermes, bow and arrows from Apollo, a golden breastplate from Hephaestus, and a robe from Athena. So going back to Genesis, we know that Esau is associated with hunting and having hunting equipment as well as a bow and arrow that Isaac told him to get when he said to hunt some game to receive his blessing. Moreover, Jacob steals the birthright of Esau, and we can think of this metaphorically, where Jacob and Heracles both have took on this hunter identity of their mortal older brother, and all the symbolism we associate with it, where the birthright of Esau is to be this like great man of the outdoors, right? And he sells it to Jacob. In Genesis 25, we know that like Esau is described as a proficient hunter, and his father favors him because of the game he cooks for him. And likewise, Heracles is the same story, where his mortal brother Iphicles was a renowned hunter, participating in the famed Caledonian boar hunt. When dealing with the Bible or JEM, we have to realize that myth is written with metaphors. And like the equipment and bow and arrow that Esau goes to get in Genesis to hunt the game for his father, it's the helmet, bow and arrow and robe and breastplate given to Heracles from the Olympian gods. In Genesis, Jacob basically steals Esau's identity when he puts on the same robe as his brother, acts like he hunted the food himself, and puts goat skin to affect the hairiness of his sibling. Likewise, Heracles adopts this persona of a hunter, but does so in a more explicit way in that he actually goes out and hunts a lion, right? And we can use this more straightforward account of Heracles by Apollodorus to interpret the more mysterious language of metaphors in the Bible dealing with Jacob, with the most interesting revelation being the identification of the lion skin that Heracles carries as armor as the goat skin that allows Jacob to adopt the persona of their brother. Stealing of Esau's blessings, Jacob has done what Esau did with much work by scheming and impersonating his brother. We can imagine his brother is out using the bow and arrow to catch the meat, but Jacob doesn't have to. So in a sense, his wit and his divine connection are a metaphorical bow and arrow. Furthermore, after donning himself with the lion skin, Heracles goes crazy and kills the two sons of Iphicles, his mortal twin brother. So when Jacob steals his brother's blessing, his mother first asks him to go get two goats, which we can imagine are the two sons of Iphicles that are killed by Heracles. And as a result of the murders, Heracles is punished, right? And he's exiled and he must go serve his uncle Eurystheus, ending in the same situation we find Jacob in Genesis 27, where he's kind of on the run from his brother Esau, and he has to go do a period of labor for his older relative Laban. Not sure if anyone watched Ninja Turtles growing up, but there was an adversary who was like a brain contained within the body of a huge monster or ogre type person, which is kind of like a symbolic representation of Jacob or Heracles, where this brain of the genius is plied with the physical capabilities of this beast of a man. Where in Hebrew it's metaphorical depiction, right? And Jacob isn't thought of as the Hulk, contrary to like the explicit account of Greek mythology where Heracles is like the Hulk. But Jacob is like a Silicon Valley technocrat in that he absorbs various industries and technologies as blessings and birthrights in the road to accumulate wealth, and as a result, like ultimately influence over society. And like Facebook or Google, within these outside shells or armor of huge powerful companies, they're filled with the schemes and toils of these brainiac software engineers and weenie like finance capitalists, right? Well, that brings us to the end of this video, and I hope you enjoyed it and found it informative.